Welcome to the final regular season edition of Diamond Kings, the best baseball talk show on YouTube, if I don't say so myself. Brought to you by our blog at Reading Between the Seams and the Sports Kings Media Network. The final weekend of the regular season baseball, the playoff picture is definitely clearing. So we'll be talking about all the teams still in the mix, the ones that are right there on the cusp. One of which is not the New York Yankees. They were eliminated today, Wednesday. So the clock is really ticking on Derek Jeter. So we're going to talk a little bit about Jeter, what our thoughts are on as far as how he's going to go out into the pasture. My name is David Whitlock from Houston, Texas. I am joined by two all-stars from the Inland Empire on the West Coast. Forget those East Coast guys. The West Coast is where it's at. We've got an Angels fan, a Dodgers fan, a couple of real baseball experts. First, one of our regular contributors is Lorenzo Mejia from Murrieta, California. How are you doing tonight, Lorenzo?
Doing great. Real exciting time of the year. Playoffs are going to be coming up. It's a great time.
Definitely, especially if you have a team involved, too. You can't go wrong with that. And also joining us is a special guest today. Joining us is Dennis Dufour from Riverside, California. He's pinch hitting for us tonight. Thank you, Dennis, for joining us, and welcome to our show.
It's a pleasure to join your webcast this evening.
Great, and like I said, great to have you here. Well, let's get right into it. Every day, this is one of the best weeks of baseball. Is always that last week where you're talking about every day there's some sort of score, some sort of team making a move. For instance, yesterday the Mariners lost a clutch game in which Felix Hernandez was the starter. They had to expect to win that, and they didn't. And so they're finding themselves farther and farther behind. You've got the Cardinals losing. You've got teams like the Pirates winning to close that gap. You've got the Dodgers-Giants series. So we'll start with each of you. We'll probably go maybe a couple rounds. Let's talk the National League first. And so it's looking like the two wildcard teams are definitely the Pirates and Giants, whichever way they finish. I don't think the Giants can catch the Dodgers. So you have the Dodgers, and then the Cardinals and Pirates are really close, and then the Nationals got it cinched. So how do you see it playing? I will start with Dennis. How do you see it playing out as far as the National League goes? Are the Dodgers going to win the West for sure? And if so, if you've got that Giants-Pirates matchup, who do you favor in that matchup starting next week?
Well, I definitely think that the Dodgers are going to win the West, especially with Kershaw pitching tonight. He's going to be the MVP of the National League, so he's a excellent person to have on the bump to try to go out and clinch the division. I do like Pittsburgh a lot. I like them better than San Francisco, especially at PNC Park. McCutcheon's doing quite well so far, and the only thing that could be the saving grace for the Giants is since they know they can't catch the Dodgers, they can line up their rotation where they'll probably have Bumgarner go on the hill, and he's been probably their best pitcher all year. So that gives them a shot. But losing Angel Pagan to back surgery is really going to hurt them.
Yeah, it was a big loss certainly yesterday because now they're 4.5 out going into today. So you have to beat Kershaw or you're done. And they're right tied with the Pirates. Essentially, these teams are going to go neck and neck as far as who hosts that game. Certainly you want to host that game. Like you said, the pitching matchup, I think, would probably favor San Francisco no matter how you look at it, just because I think they're better at the top of the rotation. But the Pirates are getting hot right now. They kind of lurk in second, third, fourth place sometimes, and they're getting hot. Lorenzo, what do you think about that matchup as well as the NL Central? Are the Cardinals going to hold off the Pirates? Because we talk about the Cardinals in the wild card, and the Cardinals are a dangerous wild card team. They've won World Series before from the wild card spot.
It takes great excitement for me to say this, but the Dodgers and the Cardinals, that's the worst matchup for the Dodgers. Last year, the Cardinals knocked them out. That's not the best matchup for the Dodgers. Anybody else but the Cardinals, it'll be great for the Dodgers. But the way it looks right now, it looks like they're going to be facing off in the divisional round. The Pirates, I think they're not going to be able to catch up. 4 games left in the season, and the Pirates are probably just going to be. What they were saying, I was reading today, is that they were looking like they were going to set up the rotation so that Garrett Cole will pitch the wild card game, the 1-game playoff. So ideally, in my perfect world, the Dodgers will get knocked out by the Cardinals in the divisional round, and it'll be great.
Dennis doesn't like that. What do you think about that prediction?
Oh, there's plenty of retribution to go to St. Louis going their way. Don't think we have forgotten. They have a pitcher that's no longer there that decided to be our starting shortstop last year, break his ribs, and the series was never the same. And Kershaw will not get lit up in a closeout in a must-win game like he did in Game 6 last year. It was probably the second worst Dodger playoff game I've watched, and nothing could beat when the Phillies went to Dodger Stadium and Jonathan Broxton gave up the home run to Matt Stairs. That was probably the worst I've ever seen. But Game 6 last year was a pretty close second, but they got payback coming. And I don't think the Cardinals are as good as they were last year, honestly. And I think the Dodgers are a little bit better.
Yeah, I have to agree with you just in principle. I think that'd be a great matchup. I think it'd be great to see the rematch. I think as far as all the teams that they lay out go, the Nationals are the Nationals. Maybe the Nationals-Cardinals would be interesting because of that big Cardinals comeback against the Nationals a few years ago. But the Cardinals-Dodgers, I mean, this goes back to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. These teams have always been good. They've always been right there in the playoffs. I'm no Cardinal lover either, being a Houston Astros fan. We had some great battles with them in the 2000s. They won in 2004. We won in 2005. But certainly, it's going to be really entertaining. In our next show, we'll probably delve into. Hopefully, the matchups will be set by then. So let's transition to the American League, and what we've got there is you've got a Royals-Tigers race that's coming down to the wire. It's looking like the A's are going to wrap up that last wild card spot because the Mariners seem to be fading. The East is just the Orioles, kind of in both. It's like the East is kind of set. You've got your winner, and you're talking about Central and West teams battling for those wild cards. So this time we'll start with Lorenzo on the Central race. So the Tigers going to hold off the Royals, and if it comes down to a Royals-A's one-game playoff, who do you like in that kind of matchup?
Look at the Royals and A's will match up in the one-game playoff. The nice thing about the Royals, at this point, if they make the playoffs, if they make the wild card, they're playing with house money. They have nothing to lose anymore. And all this pressure and the stress is going to be on the A's because they're expected to be there. They made the big trade for Lester. They made the big trade for Samardzija and Hamill. At this point, all the pressure's on them, and the Royals are just going to go in there with nothing to lose. So I like the Royals' chances in the one-game playoff.
Yeah, I think the Royals are a dangerous team because of the strength of their pitching. Their hitting is not going to set the world on fire like some of the other teams. But if you get into close games, I think Ned Yost can manage that team, and their bullpen is definitely a strength as well. What do you think about this, Dennis? Do you agree with Lorenzo that it's going to be the Tigers and win the division, the Royals will be in the wild card, and they'll beat the A's, or do you think the A's will make some sort of move? And you can talk some smack about the Angels if you feel like it.
I would really like to see the Royals win the division. I don't think they're going to do it per se, but I think a Royals-A's matchup is going to be phenomenal, even a one-game playoff, because they both have lights-out bullpen. I mean, between Holland for the Royals, Doolittle just came back for the A's. Their bullpens are phenomenal, and both teams can struggle to hit the ball. So it could be a pitcher's duel between Shields, if that's who the Royals decide to go with, or against Lester, or even Samardzija. I would imagine the A's would probably throw Lester, but playing in Oakland, that's probably the worst hitter's part or the best pitcher's part in the American League. So, that game could be 1-0, 2-1, something crazy like some minor error. It probably will win that game. I think it will be an amazing matchup if you like pitching, not so much if you like hitting.
Yeah, I think the hitting is going to come later as far as the playoffs go. I think a lot of the teams that are going to be battling for the wild card are kind of, mild hitting teams, but very strong pitching. And then when you get into those next rounds, when you see teams like the Angels and even the Orioles to an extent, obviously, with Nelson Cruz, and you get some of those teams, like the Dodgers with the stacked lineup, once you get in that second round, it's going to be offense against defense, but always in the playoffs, it seems like it comes down to that pitching. And you have to like rotations like the Dodgers. You have to like rotations like the Tigers, even though they haven't performed yet. We haven't talked that much about the Tigers. They're kind of a team lurking. Are they just kind of going to wake up in the playoffs or not? Remains to be seen. But one team that won't be in the playoffs is the New York Yankees. I'm no Yankees fan. I guess I can be a Derek Jeter fan as much as the next guy, but it's obviously going to be his last week. They played this afternoon. They'll have one more game at Yankee Stadium. Fingers crossed tomorrow because there's some rain in the forecast. They've got to figure out how to get that game in to reward their fans for one more game. But they go to Boston for the final series. So my question to you guys is, I think the Yankees have done a great job of handling the way they handled the Mariano Rivera, taking him out last year, and even seeing Andy Pettitte. He came to Houston and pitched his last game here in Houston where he grew up, and that all played out well. How would you handle the final game for Derek Jeter? As far as how do you take him out of the game, and how do you see it all playing out? Is there going to be a lap around the stadium? Is there going to be just a wave, given Derek Jeter's personality? We'll start with Dennis this time. What are your thoughts on these final few games of Jeter? Are you a big Jeter fan? Are you looking forward to seeing it? Are you going to be sad? Are you going to cry? What's going on?
You know what? I've always thought Derek Jeter was overrated to a certain extent. I've never. I mean, he's probably one of the classiest guys in baseball. I mean, you just look at everything he's done on the field, and you never hear anything bad that he's done off the field, especially with the women he's dated or anything like that. He's been just a phenomenal guy on and off the field. If I was New York, I would probably not give him maybe like a pinch hit here or there in Boston, but Boston's going to want to do something really nice for him. I mean, they made that Mariano Rivera video a couple or last season for him, making fun of some of his funnier moments against the Red Sox. But I think he owes it to the city of Boston to play, because so many of his great memories are against the Red Sox. Maybe not necessarily at Fenway Park, but I think he deserves I think they deserve to see him play.
Yeah, that's the main thing. Is and hi to your kids, by the way.
Oh,
appreciate that joining us. That's the thing is that there's a lot of fans that expect to see him play, and so if you're going to talk about can you just answer the first couple games, probably not fair to the rest of the fans. It's just not fair to Derek Jeter. He's only got a few games left. I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, look, coach, put me in. I'm playing 9 innings. It's just what I got to do for the fans. Obviously, the team, which is already fallen way out of how it was earlier in the month, is how the Yankees are handling it. Should they bench him more, give him more rest? But that's all behind us. I think he plays every game. It's just a matter of how they do in that last game. So, Lorenzo, what are your thoughts on that Jeter last game? How do you see it playing out?
There's going to be a lot of tears in the game tomorrow. Ideally, what I think they should do is when he's going in his last at bat, he'll get a big standing ovation. But when he goes out for the final inning, have somebody go in there and replace him so he can run off the field one last time. One thing, the way he's going to end his last at bat is going to be classic Jeter. He's going to slap a single to right field, typical Jeter. I was reading about there's this website online where you can place money on it. They're giving 20-1 odds that his last at bat is going to be a home run. But if you think about it, it's a horrible odds because he's only had 4 home runs all season. So you'd have to get at least 100-1 odds for him to do that in his last at bat. But ultimately, it'll be a great game for baseball tomorrow. Tomorrow, last game, Yankee Stadium. So real excited to see that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's going to be on TBS, if I read the papers correctly, and it will be interesting. And the best case I can remember is when Craig Biggio retired, and that last Sunday of the season, the Astros were out of it, and sure enough, about the 5th or 6th inning, they took him out, and they gave. And it wasn't nationally televised. It wasn't such a big deal nationally, but the local broadcast, they pretty much stopped the game. He made a lot of waves, and I'll never forget that image of him, essentially walking down the tunnel for the last time, and walking down those steps and thinking, man, I'm never see Craig Biggio, out on that field again. And love him or hate him, I kind of agree with Dennis. It's hard to call a guy overrated when he's in the top 5 or 6 in all-time hits. That is a big stat, but at the same time, as far as he was never a superstar, he didn't have a bunch of MVPs in his closet, but certainly his contribution to the game, and it's the end of an era really for the Yankees, because that team was so dominant from 1995, 96, and all the way until just a couple of years ago, and it's over now, and they have to figure out a way to move on. So appreciate your thoughts on that. So now we'll go from really heartwarming things to really not as heartwarming. let's talk a little bit about bean brawls. Last night's Dodgers-Giants game featured some inside pitching, some early warnings. There was, a situation with Bumgarner and Puig that's gone back months and months. I mean, the Dodgers and Giants have been beating each other for decades, so that's no big deal. Today, the Tigers and White Sox got into it. What do you think about this? Are players and pitchers overreacting to inside pitches? Are pitchers losing the right to pitch inside because of the potential of being ejected or suspended? And obviously, we'll start with Dennis. Give us your thoughts on that situation last night with Bumgarner and Puig, and who was right, who was wrong, and in general, do you expect to see any more of that the rest of the season? And do you think this sort of behavior is good for baseball?
Last night, it was a pitch at the feet. It wasn't really high and tight or anything like that. And Bumgarner and Puig have been going at this since Puig hit a home run off Bumgarner, flipped his bat, so it's kind of to be expected. Now, I am under the impression that the pitchers they don't pitch inside anymore because there's so much body armor for the players to stand up there. Bonds had his big thing on his elbow. You see these big things where it's not going to hurt, and what are the pitchers supposed to do? Groove one down the middle of the plate? They got to back them off somehow. So, I don't think they intentionally try to throw at them, but, they're going to go inside. And, they're entitled to that plate just as much as the batters are, and their job is to get them out. So maybe, throwing inside gets them in there, gets in their head, they back off a little plate. Now you have a little more space to work with. But, I think players overreact. I think the hitters overreact a lot. The obvious exception was when Stanton got hit in the face. You could tell the pitcher wasn't trying to do it on purpose, and then he's so visibly distraught that the next pitch, he hits the guy, and then that clears. That to a certain extent, I could see happening. I could see overreacting. You just hit our best player, broke bones in his face, and then you hit with the very next pitch. You hit the. Not that it was intentional, but you could understand the anger. But I think too nowadays, players are just soft to a certain extent. They don't. The batters think that they're entitled to everything, and when the pitcher does something that they don't want it to have happen, they overreact. So I think it's a combination of overreaction, just basic overreaction.
Yeah, no, I think so too. I think players of the 50s and 60s would scoff at the petulance of the batters that like, oh yeah, how dare you throw inside on me? But it's like, look, you've got these pitchers are digging. The batters are digging in. They've got body armor that would rival what we've got going on in our military right now. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to stand in there. Yeah, you throw an arrow, and it's all a mind game. They're trying to push the pitchers and get that ball over the plate, and it's unfortunate that there's these overreactions. Luckily, this has been going on for a while. We haven't seen any really full brawls. We haven't seen any Nolan Ryan versus Robin Ventura punches or any of that type of stuff in several years. It's mostly sword rattling. Not since Pedro Martinez took down Don Zimmer, maybe rest in peace. In that brawl, have we seen kind of these antics? It's mostly chest thumping. But Lorenzo, what do you make of this? We also had the Paul Goldschmidt getting hit. We had Andrew McCutchen getting hit. Anytime your major batters get hit, now obviously going back a few months, but do pitchers have the right to pitch in there, and is retaliation warranted if your big player gets hit?
Okay, now first of all, I'd like to say I love brawls. I'll admit it, I love brawls. I love it when there's a crazy guy that rushes the field, usually like the bullpen catcher or the lefty setup guy that just goes ballistic. I love that because everything's calming down. All of a sudden, somebody will just throw a sucker punch, and it's great to see. I love it as part of the game. I think back when I was like maybe 9 or 10 years old, I was at an Angels game, and a brawl broke out, and I was just so excited and so pumped. It was great. I'm a big fan of baseball brawls. The players, the pitchers, they're entitled to that portion of the plate. That's pretty much their only tool they have to get the players out. When you have these guys that are hitting bombs all the time, it's just something that they have to deal with. Also, I'm a big fan of respecting the game. So if you're going to show me up by taking 3 minutes to run around the bases, the next pitch is going to go in your ribs. I'm not going to go for the head. I'll go for the ribs, maybe the butt. That's okay. But yes, big fan of it, and I love baseball brawls.
Okay.
We just need to bring back Kyle Farnsworth, and that's it. Just have him come and start throwing at people and let him go. There you go.
Farnsworth made his way through Houston for about 2 weeks earlier this season, and one of those.
I think Farnsworth made it through every team for a couple of weeks at one point in the season.
So Lorenzo, I got to call you out on this one because you wrote a blog earlier this year about a minor league game in which you claimed to have started a brawl or said, hey, they're going for the pitcher or something. Can you elaborate and recant that story for us?
It was a minor league baseball game, and I was there with my wife and kids. There was maybe 150 people in the stands, and there was a guy that took 2 steps towards the mound. The bullpen guy stand. I like to sit down by the bullpen, and everything's starting to die down. But you could tell the bullpen guys were a little bit pumped up, and I just yelled at the top of it. I could just yell, "Go guys, go! It's on! It's on!" And at that point, the bullpens rushed the field, and Dennis knows me personally. He could totally see me doing that. I love to instigate stuff, and it was great times. And then the fans were going crazy, and of course, the guys get their adrenaline pumping when you see that a fight's about to break out. It's just like in high school. You see a fight get.
I did not disconnect him. He dropped from the call. So we'll have to move on. He might join us back in a second, but anyway, no, I had to remember this. Well, as soon as he said, like, oh, I love baseball balls, I was like, oh, yeah, I remember that blog he wrote about that game you went to.
Yeah, that sounds like something Lorenzo would do.
Yeah. I got to catch a game with that guy. So we'll move on to another, and I'll get to Lorenzo in a second, obviously, hoping he joins us again. But he waxed philosophic a couple weeks ago that the last matchup he ever wanted to see in the World Series would be the Angels against the Dodgers because he fears the Dodgers. He knows the Dodgers would dominate him and the fans would drive him crazy. But what I want to ask you is, what World Series matchup, given all the teams that we've got that are going to make the playoffs, what World Series matchup would you most like to see and which would you least like to see?
Oh, I'm the complete opposite. I would love to have the Dodgers play the Angels. Right. Are you kidding me? Then you could get all those bandwagon Angel fans who didn't exist before 2002, and you could shut them up, plain and simple. Now, traffic would suck because it's 5 o'clock.
Anyway, because you live in LA.
No, I mean, it's even worse because I live in the middle between Dodger Stadium. It takes me about an hour to get to Dodger Stadium and about a half an hour, 40 minutes to get to Angel Stadium. Those would probably be double or triple the times just based on freeway because of the time of the games because we're not used to having games start at 5:30. They start at 7 out here. So games starting at 5, it is pandemonium. You know, you get all these people trying to leave, and there's, you know, especially from where me and Lorenzo are from, there's only one way to get to Angel Stadium. You mean you take one freeway. So it's, you know, it's very difficult. I would love to see it. SoCal deserves it. I mean, they have the 2 best teams in baseball and, you know, the 2 best players. I mean, who wouldn't want to have a Game 7, game on the line, Kershaw versus Trout up to bat? Plain and simple. You got the heroes of the 2 best players in baseball, pitching, hitter. Who wouldn't want to see that matchup for a 7-game series? The least matchup I would like to see is probably anything involving the Cardinals and, you know, probably the Tigers. I'm not a big Tigers fan in general. And, you know, we've had to see a Cardinals-Tigers World Series in the recent. So I'm not too thrilled about that matchup because I just think the Tigers would sweep the Cardinals just based on pitching, you know. Between Scherzer and Price, I don't count Verlander. You know, I think they're better than Wainwright, and I think their hitting's just way better than the Cardinals. Yeah, so that would probably be the matchup I wouldn't want to see.
Yeah, I think I agree with you certainly especially on that Cardinals thing. It's the Cardinals again in the World Series, and they've had some success and some failures, especially as the Tigers. That was one of the worst World Series in recent memory, just because the Tigers came out and stank up the joint. They didn't look like a team that belonged, and you know, I won't rail on the Tigers too much, just in terms of I do like some of their players. Brad Ausmus, their manager, was a hero for the Astros in some of those mid-2000 playoff runs. Yeah, I'm pretty much okay with most of the American League teams. I'm a closet Orioles fan, so I like the Orioles. I could see the Tigers. I would love the Royals. The Angels don't do that much for me.
But they don't do much for me either, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, that's right. but if they were to play the Dodgers, that would be exciting because I am also a little bit of a Dodgers fan. I just liked him in the '80s with Hershiser. It kind of goes against because I was an Astros fan and they were rivals, but they were never really that good at the same time since the early '80s when they were both good at the same time. So I would have to go with I would like to see the Dodgers. I wouldn't mind seeing the Nationals. Definitely no Cardinals. Would like to see the Pirates make the World Series. And the Pirates, I mean, something like a Pirates Royals would be great for me. Nobody else would watch, but
well, I even think to a certain extent that a Beltway World Series would be really good between the Orioles and Nationals. I think that would be a great World Series.
Yeah, that was another one that Lorenzo didn't like last week. He's a grumpy guy. He just wants to start fights and stuff. But he said,
it's a Napoleon complex with him. Don't worry about it.
He was like, East Coast bias and all this stuff. But there'll be two new teams. The Orioles have done it the right way, not buying a bunch of free agents. They got Nelson Cruz. He might be roided up or whatever. And then you got the Nationals that have built through the draft, and they've got some good pitchers too. So that'd be good. I'm starting to think Lorenzo may not join us again, so we'll wrap up the show. But we were talking before the show. We always like to end with a non-baseball topic. And football is kind of going on, but nothing that major. But as far as the Ryder Cup goes, we're talking golf now. Ryder Cup is this weekend. The Americans had it all sealed up last time and blew it on the singles day. Lorenzo's back. Before we go to the Ryder Cup, we'll get some more thoughts from Lorenzo. He got cut off in the middle of his story about a brawl, but we'll hit him with this question that we were just answering, and that is, and you answered some of this in previous shows, but what is the World Series matchup you'd most like to see, and which one would you least like to see?
I would love to see, of course, the Angels. That's a given.
That's fair.
Fan.
That's fair.
I'd like to see the Angels and the Nationals. The reason I like to see those two teams go at it, I'd like to see Bryce Harper. I haven't really seen him play a lot of games. I've seen all the hype. I saw him when he was 15 years old, hitting 500-foot home runs. I've seen all that, but I hadn't actually seen him play a lot of games. Plus, I want to see a new team in there. I wouldn't mind seeing the Nationals. The World Series that I would not like to see is the Angels-Dodgers World Series. The Angels-Dodgers World Series would not be a good matchup for the Angels. I don't want to have to deal with Dodger fans. I'd be afraid to go to Angel Stadium because I don't want to get beat up at it when I go to a game.
Wow.
For safety, I just don't like. First of all, I don't go to Dodger Stadium for a couple of reasons, but the main reason why is safety. And if I go to Angel Stadium, the stadium is overrun by Dodger fans, and I just don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, you'll love the segment when you had dropped off when you see it when we replay this because we were poking a lot of fun at you for that. I got to get a Dennis response. What are your thoughts on his Beltway Series analysis, which by the way was his preferred, I think, World Series.
Oh, I would love to have a Dodger Angel World Series just to prove who's better in SoCal. That's it, and put all you 2002 post World Series Angel fans in your place because we all know that's all when you started to become fans.
That is true.
So as far as safety goes, just remember you have as much stabbings at your stadium as we do at ours, so we're good in the parking lot. So we're about good on that one.
All right, well, we'll go back to the non-baseball topic. That was the Ryder Cup, and we were fixing to get into what are your thoughts after the American collapse last time, in which they had it all wrapped up and then lost pretty much all the singles matches. Dennis, you got a prediction for the Ryder Cup? Does America have a shot at this? It's 2-1 for Europe. Please tell me that the U.S. is going to win this.
Well, I get accused by certain people in this chat right here of being anti-American because my family's from Canada, and so I'm not going to disappoint him with this. I don't think the Euros, I don't think the Americans have a shot. I really don't. Between Rory and Lee Westwood, I think they're just better, plain and simple. I mean, I would love to see Tiger Woods go over there and kind of restore some glory, but it didn't happen because he's injured. I just don't think that Americans have enough. And I love Ricky Fowler. He's from where you're from, right, Lo?
Yes, sir. He plays at my home course. That was his home course.
And I got a Ricky is my homeboy T-shirt. I love Ricky, but
haircut.
but I just don't think they have enough. I don't. I think that the Europeans are too deep, and we're not deep enough.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that they tend to. I mean, there's a lot of camaraderie on both sides, but when they won that last time, I mean, you could just feel the energy that they were feeding off each other. Even though you've got an Italian, a German, an Englishman, an Irishman all playing together, it all comes together, and it's pride. I don't think it's anti-American at all. I just think it's one of those. Hey, we're out here to beat those guys. The United States thinks they're the big dog, and we're out here to prove them wrong, and we'll do it however it takes. Lorenzo, give me some Ryder Cup analysis.
Anytime you're going to go to somebody else's country, somebody else's field to go play, it's going to be tough to win. They're going over to Europe. It's going to be tough as it is. And here's the thing that's kind of sad. Since Tiger Woods isn't in it and is participating in the Ryder Cup, I'm not really into it. And it's kind of sad to say, and I think a lot of people are the same way. Because unless Tiger Woods is there, it's not really happening unless he's there. I'm a big fan of Ricky Fowler. He's another Inland Empire guy, another IE guy. And probably this weekend I'll be wearing some orange Puma shirts just in honor of him.
Yeah, good stuff. You know, it's interesting, the whole Tiger Woods and do people watch or not, you know, it's kind of like when you got back to the Michael Jordan basketball era. Okay, there's no Michael Jordan. Is anybody going to watch the finals? And we finally got LeBrons and Kobe's and other guys. And I think we are between that. You know, Tiger, seemed like people would rather watch Tiger dominate a Masters tournament by 10 strokes than see two guys that are up-and-comers battle like down the stretch, which you know, as a golf fan, I like everybody kind of equally. Whoever wins, I'm happy for. But back to the Ryder Cup, I have trouble seeing the U.S. win. They're going to have to put together some really, really good golf. I think, you know, there's some young and up-and-comers. I think they're probably 2-4 years away, whereas you have the Europeans that have won it before they're established. So I hope it's close. I hope it comes down to singles matches. It'd be great if it came down to the last 3, 4, 5 singles matches on Sunday. That's all I'm cheering for, and then let the chips fall where they may. Well, I want to thank both of you guys. Our Inland Empire, we'll call this the Inland Empire Show. Dennis, thanks for joining us at the last minute. Any last thoughts?
Well, I would just like to say thank you. It was a lot of fun getting to break down some baseball and talk a little golf. It was great, good times. Thank you for having me.
Certainly, and we'll have you back sometime. And it's always fun to make fun of Lorenzo. It's funny, we talk about bandwagon fans for the Angels, and he admits he's a bandwagon fan for Tigers. So, Lorenzo, any final thoughts?
No, it's a great show. I'm looking forward to the talks. And, yeah, it's going to be great times.
Yeah, now, the best time of year is coming up. October is one of my favorite months. If you're talking about, you've got playoff baseball. I'm a football fan like most guys. It happens to be my wife's birthday, happens to be my anniversary, happens to be my niece's birthday, and my mom's birthday. They're all in October. So it'll be a busy month. Happy birthday to all of them in advance. Happy anniversary, honey. I'll see you on our anniversary night. We won't be doing a Diamond King show that night. But anyway, thanks again to both of you for joining us. And check out all the latest news on our Reading Between the Scenes blog. And we'll be here next week to talk about the serious playoff matchup from the third set.